I just wanted to point out that the entire time I've been filming these, I've been facing a mirror. Seems appropriate. Anyway, hi everyone, my name is Rebecca, and welcome back to... Okay, I gotta take this thing off, it doesn't feel right. Back to normal. So if you couldn't already tell from the intro or the title, today I'm going to be talking about mirroring on BBC Sherlock. I've actually already talked about mirroring quite a lot, but since this is the video dedicated to the topic, I'm going to give you a refresher on what exactly mirroring is. Mirroring is a literary device where a minor character is placed in the story who shares some traits of one of the main characters in order to reveal something about them. This is similar to a foil, where a minor character will have some traits in common with a main character, but mostly exists to highlight the differences between the two of them, like their strengths or their weaknesses. This is probably the most commonly used subtextual device on Sherlock. Many of the characters end up paralleling Sherlock or John in some way, even if it's only for a scene. The writers have actually complimented us on working this out, but I'll be getting back to that later. For now, I'm sticking to mirroring, which I'm using as an umbrella term for both mirrors and foils, in Series 1 and 2. Series 3 and The Abominable Bride will be next month. Some of the most common indicators for a mirror include having a character share physical attributes with one of the main characters, having them dressed the same way, having them share a name, which happens more than you'd think, having them say or do similar things, and sometimes literally placing characters in front of mirrors when the writers want to be particularly obvious about it. Like many people in the fandom, I started noticing mirroring because of the work of Loudest-Subtext-In-Television, particularly the 2.0 reading and M-Theory. I can't link to all of her meta anymore, but there's a link in the description to a Google Drive folder put up by artfulkindoforder, which contains some of Loudest-Subtext-In-Television's work, and I really recommend browsing through it if you like Sherlock theories. And let's be real, if you're here, you do. Reading M-Theory actually helped me prepare for this, like, a lot. Mirroring is actually really easy to pick up on once you reach a mental state I like to call peak tremogus. Tremogus is a pretty common Tumblr tag in the TJLC community and stands for "This reminds me of John and Sherlock," usually put under a picture of two cats cuddling or a small thing next to a taller thing. When you reach peak tremogus, when everything reminds you of John and Sherlock, you'll have no problem seeing the John and Sherlock mirrors on the show. That's when you'll realize that they're everywhere, from the very first case onwards, literally. One of the many things that Loudest-Subtext-In-Television pointed out was that all of the cabbie's victims in A Study in Pink are John mirrors. The easiest to pick up on is Jennifer Wilson, who shares his initials, JW. You can apply this back to the rest of them though. At the start of the show, we're introduced to John, who is obviously damaged and keeps his gun readily on hand while talking about how nothing ever happens to him.
Nothing happens to me.
A lot of people believe he was contemplating suicide. Then immediately after the opening credits roll, we see a series of people who have apparently committed suicide. This is showing us the situations that are unhealthy for John and would end up with him dead, possibly by his own hand. For example, staying unhappily married while having an affair with a coworker in a deep purple shirt.
I love you.
When?
Doesn't end well. The same goes for refusing to be close to his friend with floppy brown hair because he's worried about what other people think.
Exactly 2 minutes, mate.
What?
I'm just going home, get my umbrella.
You can share mine.
2 minutes, right?
Turning to alcohol to cope with his responsibilities.
She's still dancing.
Yeah, if you can call it that.
Just get the car keys.
Got them out of her bag.
And staying in a broken marriage even after something happened to his child and just having a string of unhappy lovers.
Rachel was Jennifer Wilson's stillborn daughter 14 years ago.
She's been married for at least 10 years, but not happily. She's had a string of lovers, but none of them knew she was married.
It's interesting how 2 of these show the victim in an unhappy marriage. One of the common themes for mirrors is that many of them involve romance, which wouldn't make a lot of sense unless the central relationship of the show was also a romance. Even if, hypothetically, some of the subplots I point out here weren't intended as direct mirrors, the fact that they keep telling this kind of story again and again in the background of the show is enough. But I'm pretty sure most of them were intended to be mirrors, if not all. So next is the introduction of Molly as a John mirror in this episode. I did a video on Molly not too long ago, so feel free to check that out for all of the parallels. The main thing here is that both Molly and John are interested in Sherlock, and they get very different reactions from him.
I was wondering if you'd like to have coffee.
Black, 2 sugars, please. I'll be upstairs.
Okay.
So you got a boyfriend?
No.
Right, okay.
John, I think you should know that I consider myself married to my work, and while I'm flattered by your interest,
There are actually 2 Sherlock mirrors in this episode too, although they're both pretty subtle. We know from his last vow that Sherlock's first name is William, so we should be on the lookout for any Williams, Bills, or Billies. It just so happens that there are 2 Billies in this episode. One is Sherlock's skull. You can find his name in the casebook. That means Sherlock found a skull, named it after himself, and started carrying it around and talking to it.
It's a skull. Friend of mine. When I say friend.
That is really super sad. The other is Billy at Angelo's, helpfully setting the scene for John and Sherlock's first romantic conversation.
Thank you, Billy.
And Mrs. Hudson has a mirror of her own in this episode. Mrs. Turner was actually a name accidentally given to Mrs. Hudson in the canon, since Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was pretty bad with names. Mrs. Hudson isn't worried at all about housing a gay couple. After all, Mrs. Turner already has married ones.
There's another bedroom upstairs if you've been needing 2 bedrooms.
Of course we'll be needing 2.
Oh, don't worry, there's all sorts around here. Mrs. Turner next door's got married once.
Yeah, I sold someone on TJLC with that fact alone. Hi Dan! In The Blind Banker, most of the mirrors involve members of the Black Lotus. I did already talk about this in depth in the video on that episode, but I've changed my mind about a few things since then, so I'm just going to cover it all again here. My revisions were pretty heavily influenced by reading M-Theory. The episode starts by introducing Sue Lin, a Sherlock mirror, and Andy, a John mirror.
400 years old. They're letting you use it to make yourself a brew.
Some things aren't supposed to sit behind glass. They're made to be touched, to be handled.
Andy is clearly interested, and so is Sue Lin, but she feels that a relationship would put Andy in danger. If you're up to date on my episode coverages, that should sound very familiar.
Can I maybe decide that for myself?
I can't. I'm sorry.
Sue Lin's life is threatened, and she disappears, leaving Andy to wonder why she abandoned him and the work she loved so much.
Look, those teapots, those ceramics, they've become her obsession. She's been working on restoring them for weeks. I can't believe that she would just abandon them.
He's forced to wonder if it was somehow his fault.
Perhaps she was getting a bit of unwanted attention?
We later learn that the reason Sue Lin disappeared was that her brother came to her asking for help, working on behalf of a criminal organization.
He came to my flat. He asked me to help him to track down something that was stolen.
John?
I saw it on the telly. You okay?
Me? What? Oh, yeah, fine. Gas leak, apparently.
And she refused.
You've no idea what it was.
I refused to help.
I can't.
Can't.
Stuff I've got on is just too big. I can't spare the time.
In this mirror version of the story, Sue Lin, Sherlock, dies because John abandons her.
I have to go and help him. Bolt the door after me.
If that were to happen, Mycroft, Sherlock's brother, would also end up dead, probably killed off by John when he found out it was his fault. Unlike what I said before, I don't still believe that Jiju was also Moriarty, but that the name was chosen to link the brother under someone else's control to Moriarty. Mycroft was simply caught in the web. Both M-Theory and the text we saw in the Hound of Baskerville
The whole point of
make a pretty good case for Mycroft being the M at the other end of the Skype call at the end of the episode, meaning that Mycroft might likewise be the one to bring down Moriarty. At the very least, he'll help. Not all of the mirrors in The Blind Banker are in that small subplot. There's also Sarah, who is a foil to Sherlock as John's romantic interest. Sherlock offers excitement and adventure and true passion. Sarah offers stability and routine and something safe. John tries to make himself believe that's what he wants, even though he knows it's not.
No, mundane is good sometimes. Mundane works.
Sherlock is obviously annoyed at Sarah's presence. And we know that in the end, John will end up choosing his life with Sherlock over the routine with Sarah. She's just a distraction. In the next episode, there's the Andrew West case. Andrew West died and is believed by others to have done horrible things.
We think West must have taken the memory stick. We can't possibly risk it falling into the wrong hands.
The person left standing up for him is his fiancée, who's grief-stricken at his loss.
He wouldn't. He just wouldn't.
No. Stranger things have happened.
Westy wasn't a traitor. It's a horrible thing to say.
You told me once that you weren't a hero. There were times I didn't even think you were human, but let me tell you this. You were the best man, the most human being that I've ever known, and no one will ever convince me that you told me a lie. And so, there.
She even uses language that's commonly used by both John and Sherlock, that Andrew West was a good man. Her good man.
He didn't steal those things, Mr. Watson. I knew Westy, he was a good man. He was my good man.
You were the best and the wisest man that I have ever known. Certainly not the best friend or the bravest and kindest and wisest human being I have ever had the good fortune of knowing.
And again, adding to this based on reading M Theory, the person responsible for the death was, again, a brother. This time, though, it was by accident, because he got in over his head.
Why did you kill him?
It was an accident. I swear it was. I started dealing drugs. I don't know how it started. I just got out of my depth. I owed people thousands. Serious people.
Jim Moriarty. Hi.
Not all mirrors reveal something deeper about the overarching plot. Some of them are just there to tell you one small thing about the characters. Take the mirror between Sherlock and Connie Prince's brother. Before the Connie Prince case, Sherlock was wearing this shirt.
Stop the clock.
Then, when we meet Connie Prince's brother, he's wearing a similar purple shirt.
Yes, thank you. So
He's also at least a little interested in John.
you fire away.
Interesting. Of course, other mirrors do reveal something deeper about the plot, even when at first they seem like a cheap gay joke. In this episode, Sherlock is faced with Moriarty's puzzles, and he also meets Moriarty in person.
Hi. So you're Sherlock Holmes.
In that scene, there's an immediate rivalry between John and Jim. Moriarty steps into the space between John and Sherlock, and John looks upset.
You on one of your cases?
Jim works in IT upstairs.
Yes, John makes the point that Jim isn't necessarily gay, but then a few scenes later, he throws a jealous fit over Moriarty, telling Sherlock he hopes they'll be happy together.
So why is he doing this then? Playing this game with you? Do you think he wants to be caught?
I think he wants to be distracted.
I hope you'll be very happy together.
People have often called Moriarty a foil for Sherlock, but he's more of a foil for John as a romantic rival. If Sherlock chose Moriarty, which let's be clear he'd never do, because he likes doing things like telling a PA she was given $9 million and refuses to help murderers who come to him for help, but if he were to choose Moriarty, then he would become a great man, in the sense of great that also means terrible. If Sherlock chooses John, which he always will, then he will become a genuinely good man who doesn't feel the need to hide behind an icy exterior. John and Moriarty's approaches are in stark contrast to each other. John enters Sherlock's life at Sherlock's request. He makes a few advances, but then tries to move on when he thinks Sherlock has made it clear that he's not interested, and offers him his whole life anyway, expecting nothing in return. Moriarty, on the other hand, arranges whole elaborate spectacles to bring out the worst in Sherlock, trying to force him to realize that they were meant to be together.
We were made for each other, Sherlock.
He can't accept no as an answer. At the end of the episode, John offers to die to save Sherlock.
Sherlock, run!
While Moriarty returns to kill him so that no one else can have him.
I'm glad no one saw that. You ripping my clothes off in a darkened swimming pool, people might talk.
Be with you, little else.
Sorry, boys!
We know what the healthier love is, and we know what Sherlock will eventually choose. In A Scandal in Belgravia, there's a mirror between Sherlock and Irene, which they make pretty clear right from the start by having both mirror each other's actions. They even threw in Kate, Irene's partner, as a mirror for John.
Kate, we're going to have a visitor. I'll need a bit of time to get ready.
A long time.
Ages.
Both help their partners get ready for their meeting.
Punch me in the face.
Shave? Blood.
Punch you?
Yes, punch me in the face. Didn't you hear me?
I always hear punch me in the face when you're speaking, but it's usually subtext.
Oh, for God's sakes. Thank you. That was.
Irene's phone, the main puzzle of the case and her symbolic heart, is hidden behind a large, ornate mirror.
Amazing how fire exposes our priorities.
The This tells us that the case is about Sherlock's heart as well. Their mirror exists to show that both are gay and to reveal things about Sherlock's heart, like his love for John and the fact that he's currently being motivated by fear. In this episode, Molly continues to mirror John's interest in Sherlock and his jealousy over Irene.
Whose phone is it?
A woman's?
Your girlfriend?
So she's alive then. How are we feeling about that?
Happy New Year, John.
Do you think you'll be seeing her again?
But what's more interesting is the way that Irene acts as a foil for John. Sherlock can easily read John, but Irene makes no sense to him. Sherlock replies to everything in front of John, but never replies to Irene.
You flirted with Sherlock Holmes.
At him. He never
Now,
replies.
Sherlock always replies to everything. He's Mr. Punchline. He will outlive God trying to have the last word.
Irene tells Sherlock to impress her, and he solves the case and looks up at John.
Go on. Impress a girl.
Give me a moment, I've only been in the case for 8 seconds.
John leaves Sherlock and Irene alone together, and his first thought when emerging from his mind palace is of John.
Coventry.
I've never been. Is it nice?
That's John.
It's interesting that these love interests are placed in direct contrast to John, and always leave John as the obvious choice for Sherlock. We get the same kind of mirroring in John's other relationships, particularly Jeanette, who is a Sherlock clone and directly tells John not to make her compete with Sherlock Holmes.
Just tell me what it is I'm not doing. Tell me.
Don't make me compete with Sherlock Holmes.
They wouldn't repeatedly write this kind of situation if it weren't meant to tell us something about John and Sherlock's hearts and where the show will lead. Where it's leading will have John and Sherlock happily together. The innkeepers in the Hound of Baskerville are foreshadowing of this. You can't always rely on physical appearance for mirrors, though. This one makes that much obvious. Right when Gary, the burly one with the brown curly hair, is introduced, John changes his speech patterns to mirror him. He says ta a lot more than usual.
There you go.
Oh, ta. I'll just get your change.
Ta. Ta. Ta.
And they're both wearing red button-up shirts. Gary looks happy and at peace with himself in a way we've never seen from John, especially when he thinks he's met another happy gay couple.
Sorry we couldn't do a double room for you boys.
That's fine. We're not.
The tiny one with blonde hair who looks a bit like John comes over, and we find out his name.
I'm just saying we've been rushed off our feet, Billy.
Another Billy, in a very happy gay relationship, encouraging other gay couples on their travels.
What with the monster and the ruddy prisoner, I don't know how we sleep nice. Do you, Gary?
Like a baby.
That's not true. He's a snorer. Hey, is yours a snorer?
Later in the episode, there's an amazingly framed shot where Sherlock and Billy are placed in front of an ornate mirror, and John and Gary are placed in front of a more rustic one. Why was it set up that way if not to align Sherlock and John with the happy gay couple, and to show who is who? Also, Billy is the one who put the dog down, but couldn't actually bear to do it because sentiment got in the way. Poor Sherlock. At the end of the episode, this time it's John and his mirror who have the matching purple shirts, while Sherlock and Billy both bring John his breakfast.
Thanks, Bill.
At the end of the episode, Gary and Billy are still happy and together, because even though they got involved in some bad things, they did it together and were honest with each other the whole time. Communication is key. Then there are the Henry-John parallels. Henry is John after losing a loved one, and having everyone think that that loved one, and by extension them, are liars. This parallels John after the Reichenbach fall. Henry tries to move on with his life by going back to therapy.
Oh, there's something else.
Why today?
You want to hear me say it?
But he's never going to fully recover because someone close to him,
If I could help with Henry, give me a call.
someone he trusts,
It's been very kind to me since I came back.
As you know, these last couple of years haven't been easy for me.
has been lying to him all along.
20 years! 20 years of my life making news! Come! Why didn't you just kill me?
You. What have I ever done? My whole life to deserve you.
And we're told that kind of behavior is evil and will be punished. That was already hinted at the beginning of the episode, when Mrs. Hudson, who will be a John Muir in season 3 if she isn't already, gets extremely angry when she finds out about her partner's double life, and we never hear from him again.
Oh, looks like Mrs. Hudson finally got to the wife in Doncaster.
Wait until she finds out about the one in Islamabad.
At the end of the episode, while John has mostly given up any hope of being in a relationship with Sherlock, or in any relationship at all, and has just devoted himself to their life together instead in whatever way Sherlock will let him be a part of it, Moriarty is obsessed with forcing Sherlock to choose him, or making him pay.
Because I owe you a fall, Sherlock.
And that is the main foil in the Reichenbach Fall. John versus Moriarty. There is one other small thing I want to point out though, because it will carry over to part 2 of this topic. So far, 3 women have demonstrated romantic interest in Sherlock, fake or not. Molly, who ended up dating Moriarty.
What do you mean gay? We're together.
Irene, who ended up working for Moriarty.
Jim Moriarty sends his love.
And Kitty, who ends up dating and working for Moriarty.
Darling, they didn't have any ground coffee, so I just got more.
It's a definite pattern at this point, so we should be suspicious of any woman who shows an interest in dating Sherlock.
Mr. Holmes, you're going to be incredibly useful.
But like I said, the main mirror going on in this episode is the rivalry between John Watson and Jim Moriarty. We see repeatedly that the more that Sherlock pushes John away, the closer he gets to Moriarty.
Sherlock.
Are you listening? He's out. You know he'll be coming after you.
Kettle's just boiled. This is my cab. You get the next one.
Why?
You might talk. Stop the cab!
Stop the cab!
What was that? What was that?
No charge.
Doesn't she mean anything to you? You once half killed a man because he laid a finger on her.
She's my landlady.
She's dying! You machine! Sod this. Sod this. You stay here if you want, on your own.
Alone is what I have. Alone protects me.
Nope. Friends protect people.
Here we are at last. You and me, Sherlock. And our problem, the final problem.
Eventually, he's pushed John so far away that he's reached the tipping point, and he can't go back to John until he's wiped away every trace of Moriarty. And we also see that this outcome, Sherlock choosing someone else, even if it's only to get close enough to defeat them, leaves both of them miserable.
Please, there's just one more thing. Mate. One more thing. One more miracle, Sherlock, for me. Don't be dead. Would you just for me, just stop it. Stop this.
That's the interesting thing about these mirrors. More often than not, they hint at a romance. And why would that be the case if the relationship they're mirroring, the relationship between John and Sherlock, was not also a romance? Why would they have so many of these mirror stories ending tragically when they choose to stay with someone they don't love? Or hide the truth from each other?
You wouldn't like me all that much.
Lucy, love, I gotta go out. I gotta see someone.
Westy!
And why would John and Sherlock consistently turn down relationships with each other's foils, or have those relationships not work out?
Black, 2 sugars, please. I'll be upstairs.
He never replies.
Don't make me compete with Sherlock Holmes.
In favor of staying with each other.
The name's Sherlock Holmes and the address is 221B Baker Street.
Sherlock always replies to everything.
Oh, hi. You okay?
The reflections are telling us something about these characters, and about the very heart of this story. That while there are so many ways that things can go wrong, and will go wrong, there's only one way these characters will ever be happy, and that's with each other, like the innkeepers.
Like a baby.
And that's it for now. I'll be continuing on to talk about mirrors in Series 3 in the special next month. This week I consulted metas by the 7% Solution, Joolabee, and of course the metas from Loudest-Subtext-In-Television, particularly M-Theory, which helped me solidify a lot of things I had been slowly reconsidering. Oh, and thank you to Johnlock, who donated to the GoFundMe campaign so we could meet, and who I somehow left off the list last time. I'm so sorry about that. I'm slowly catching back up to my schedule, so I'll be back sometime around the 29th for a discussion on John's bisexuality. Until then, thank you for watching, and get ready to believe.